team, if you're the Warriors, you'd have to be looking at what they are going to do. And specifically in regard to Trae Young, because I think he's tight. The Warriors aren't going to have interest in Trae Young, but Trae Young is really going to be tied to Dejounte Murray, and I think one of those two will be going this offseason. So if they decide to keep Trae, then there's a good chance they're going to look to move on from Dejounte. And I think if you're the Warriors, you might have some interest in Dejounte Murray. I don't think he's the perfect fit for the Warriors by any means. I don't think he's a guy that absolutely, makes them into a title contender again or the top echelon of the Western Conference. But I do think he's a guy that would be handy, obviously depending on the price. And he's someone that I would look at and at least explore what it might take from a Warriors standpoint. Again, if it took Kuminga, then absolutely not. Murray's not the standard player that I'd give Kuminga up for. But again, if it was a different package, then I like that, especially if you're giving away, or not giving away, but if you're waiving Chris Paul's contract and you need a guy to handle the non-Curry minutes, Murray's an option there. So obviously the Hawks getting this number one pick, the influence that has on what they do with Trae and Dejounte moving forward. And then, if they do take the pick, then someone, that the projected number one at the moment is Alex Sarr, who actually played for Perth over here in the NBL this season. What do they do with a guy like Capela or a Kongwu? Those two guys, if they want Sarr to come in and be their center of the future, then one of those two guys, Capela, is probably going to be available. And again, he's a guy from a Warrior standpoint, given the need for more size, is for more shot blocking, is he a guy that you would look at? The issue here is I think the Warriors need a guy like Capela. They need a big body. They need a guy that's nearly 7 foot, because I think if you have genuine ambition of trying to get back to the playoffs next season, I don't think you can go into next season thinking, Trace Jackson-Davis is going to be our starting center in the playoffs. He's going to guard Jokic and, or Chet Holmgren or Kat and Gobert, whoever it may be. Like, there are some behemoths in the Western Conference. He can't be your only option. Him and Draymond can't be your only option. Yes, you might have Looney available to you, but how much you can rely on him going forward, who knows after what he produced this season. So I do think the Warriors need a genuine big man. However, Capela is on that awkward contract where he's making $20 million, where you'd actually have to give up, obviously, something worthwhile to get him. And then where does that leave Jackson Davis? Because you'd be bringing Capela in as a starter, almost assuredly. But then TJD is probably too good, you would say, to have to move back to the bench and play a backup role where he's 10, 15 minutes a game. Like, looks like a guy that can play 20 minutes a night, which for a guy who you've got under contract for another 3 years at ridiculously low money, like less than $2 million, essentially $2 million a season, like, you want to make use of that as much as you can. And so I don't think the Warriors are going to be best suited to bring in a guy on $20 million like a Clint Capela, or a guy like, let's say, the Cavs were happy with what Mobley did in the second round here without Allen, and Allen becomes available. He's another piece that the Warriors would potentially look at, and a guy that they kind of need. However, again, he'd be in that awkward price range where you're paying $20 million. If you bring him in, it's to be a starter, and then what happens with TJD? Because I think TJD is too good and will be too good to be a 10, 15 minute per game player. But then, can you get a genuine 7 foot defensive presence on a minimum contract? Probably not either. And so this is the situation the Warriors find themselves in. But again, going back to the implications of the Hawks getting the number one pick, a guy like Capela could become available, and might become available fairly cheaply from a trade standpoint if they end up drafting Alex Sarr or another big man.